Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me again. This time round, I would like to go through a mix that I did about a year ago. It is a song by Aubrey Banda called Nokha. It has a lot of professional hands that went into this production. Um, Starting from production by Dan, I think Jabe was also involved in the engineering of this. Ralph on drums, Judah on bass, I believe, and various other people that contributed. Deborah, who did some backing vocals and also lead vocals, and a few other people as well. I may have gotten some of those names wrong, but I believe most of these guys that I'm mentioning were in this project. Generally, a very good project, and really enjoyed mixing it. Interesting things in it, and I thought maybe we should share and go through it and talk about the mixing choices that I went through to get this song. So I'm just going to play it a little bit just to get an idea of the mix itself. When I opened it this morning, I realized some plugins were missing. Of course, I've replaced them all now. So some of them EQ moves, or not EQ per se, but some of the moves that were in the original song itself may not be accurate in case you go hear it on Spotify or anything like that. But I've tried to remember what I did, and yeah, so this is it now. I'll just play it so that we can see. Right, so that's part of the song. You can tell that there's a lot of time spent on that lead vocal to sound and as warm as and as thick as possible, and I'm really proud of that. Yeah, so let's just go through it. I would like to just break it down and see what we did, and just talk about the decisions that we did throughout this mix. So obviously now, unlike our Elaine mix that we did, this is now looking at getting a finished song that's going out for mastering from a studio sort of perspective. Yeah, it's still a live recording, live drums, live everything, a little bit of MIDI on things like shaker, cowbell, this African kit, whatever this is. But everything else pretty much was recorded live, and then the vocals were tracked after that. Yeah, so I mean that's my specialty anyway. Live, wouldn't know what to do with a digital track, to be honest. Um, but yeah, so let's go through it. Let's just see what we did with the drums. I'll just solo the drums right now. I'll go to the chorus. So you can see a big kick. The other drums are lightweight and just there. Um, Obviously, we also have to go with the genre and style of music. I mean, this is Afrocentric sort of vibe. Usually, the snare is very busy. You don't want to make it too heavy; it will overtake the song. Because that's not what we're aiming for. We're aiming for it to drive the rhythm, yes, but we don't want it to be a heavy sound. So that's what we went for here. Luckily, the performance was also going that same direction. So they tuned the snare high and they played it in a way that makes it sound lightweight. So we just complemented that. Let's look at the kick. On the kick, sometimes I just love the preset that comes with with the SSL channel strips. This one, I think I just opened this up and literally opened kick. Let me actually just try and open it, see if nothing changes. Yeah, so there were a few things that are backed off and whatnot, but you can tell that this came from that setting, and then I just tweaked it accordingly. Now, most people, when they open up presets, they think, that we end there. But obviously, when these guys were creating these presets, they had their sound, whatever they were using to mix was whatever they then came up with to come up with this preset. Obviously, it's going to be different with your recording environment, microphone, the drum kit itself, and everything else. So you do have to still make conscious decisions about how that preset can now then fit your song. So as you can see, we changed quite a bit of things here. If I go back and forth on the preset that I actually used, actually it says kick live, so maybe that's the wrong preset. Whatever preset it was, but basically we made sure that we had our own spin to it. It could be one of these. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. Yeah, but yeah, that's basically what I did to the drum, and then also just did this EQ to it because I felt it was a bit too bright without it. So yeah, I may just play with it. So this is without. This is with. Okay. A lot more calm and more rounded, nothing too dramatic. It was too bright, too deep, so we kind of just went with this EQ to help it. Also, this area I'll talk about, we dipped this for a reason. It was overtaking with the bass. We'll see later on as we go on that was the overtaking with the bass. I won't go through all the drums, but quickly on the snare as well. You can see that I also started with a snare drum preset. I believe this one is actually just this one. Where is the snare drum? Yeah, actually it's got a tick on it, so that's good. Yeah, so it was this, and this is what I ended up still tweaking on it. So we still changed a little, quite a bit of a lot on the dynamics there, as opposed to how it came. And if I turn off the snare, obviously snare is important, so let's spend a bit of time on the snare. This is how it came. Okay, I got no sound. Right, give me a moment. Let me see why we're not getting any sound. We've muted the master. Fantastic. That's good. Never mute your master. Yeah, so let's hear the snare. So this is the mixed snare. And before. So you can see it sounded quite poorly and, extremely thin and dull. And we made it thicker and beefier. Some of you might be curious as to what makes this, what made it get there. So we brightened it up. We also raised up some of the high mids as well, and raised up some of the low mids and the lows as well. Pretty much almost all the frequencies, but they're all playing their part. Nothing wrong with EQing all the frequency bands if it needs it. You can also see there's some gain compensation. We dropped down the gain here because we obviously boosted quite a lot of EQ, and that adds to the volume. And after that, we did some compression, very basic compression. You only have two settings on this compressor: fast attack or slow attack, and then you can work your release there. So it's roughly a fast release and a fast attack. Just trying to bring out the body of the snare. It's a very short snare anyway, so this will bring out the body of the snare and just make it slightly thicker. Yeah, very mild ratio there, and we just obviously set the ratio, the threshold accordingly. Let's see how much compression we're doing. We're doing about 6 decibels tops, somewhere there. Yeah, 6 decibels tops. And then we have this Sheps. I love this on snare. I basically also opened up the preset snare here, you can see, and then we tweaked that around. Where's the undo button? Oh my god, I've lost the undo button. Okay, oh, there we are. Yeah, so this is where we came from, and this is the setting from how it comes. So we just boosted the low frequency there pretty much, and that's it. And there's a de-esser because a hi-hat was leaking into this snare. This is a nice trick. You can always put this on when you have hi-hat bleeding into your snare and you don't want it to overshadow your actual hi-hat channel as well. And it's also just to tame some of the highs on the snare itself, similar to what you do to vocals. And then we did this. Can't remember why I did this. Maybe I was just trying to get a bit more body and, remove some boxiness. I can't remember why I did that, but I believe that was the intention. Then the multi-band. So now, as you can see, I de-essed it up there to kind of remove some of the highs from the snare so that it doesn't interact with the hi-hat. But then this is a trigger now from the same snare. It's using this snare actually to trigger. It's got extreme gating and whatnot. So it's triggering. That's why this channel is down. It's triggering and then opening for the highs of the snare only when the snare is being hit. It's just a nice trick to help the snare be bright without being disturbing for the hi-hat channel. And finally, some more EQ. Now that we've controlled everything, we've now just adding a lot more spice, more body, and more shine. Yeah, so basically that's what we did to the snare. Yeah, and in the mix, this is what it sounds like. Okay, so I'll turn off all the plugins. This is where we came from, and this is where we're at. Okay, so big difference. Moving on to the bass. The bass, we split the channels into two. Sometimes I do that, especially when I'm looking for certain characters from each one of these channels. So let's figure out what we're doing here. Obviously, we've got the same CLA 2A compressor on both of the channels. You can see that this is a slightly dirtier channel. It has a lot of saturators. It's got the decapitator. It's also got the R bass. Let's listen to it. You can hear that it has a bit of rumble. This is before. It's thicker, it's got a lot more saturation and more drive into it. So the decapitator itself, I just used a preset called Beefy under bass, Beefy, and I didn't do anything else to it. I just literally opened it up and did that, and it was nice. And then our bass, you can only crank this thing up or down, so you can see it's fully cranked. We're trying to get as much low end information out as possible. This helps that. I can just turn this off. You can see. So you can see it's less deep with this on. This off and this is on. So it's a lot deeper, and that's what we're going for. Now, when I was mixing this bass, in my head, I'm thinking Aubrey Banda's kind of bass. So I was looking for as much deep information as possible, and then supplemented by this one here, which has got more of the higher information out of the bass. And we're taming some of the lows as well, and obviously boosting some high mids there as well. Yeah, that is just to extract some of the highs out of the bass. Oh, sorry, let me open this and see what we were doing with this. Why is it not coming up? Okay, there we go. This is also just boosting some of that high mid for clarity out of the bass as well. So basically, this channel is for the highs, this is for the lows, and when you combine them, this is what you get. Yeah. Off. So when it's off, it's nice. Sounds like a nice bass tone, but if you put that in a mix, it won't be deep or thick enough to kind of, do its thing. So there you go. I'll turn off the plugin so you can just hear what I mean. It's got nowhere near that body that we're getting from the plugins. So it's much boomier, it's much thicker, and it gives me that Aubrey Banda sort of vibe. Yeah, yeah, and that's it really on the bass. Not nothing special. Just that trick there where you split the channels. One works on the lows, one works on the highs. Also check your phase when you're doing two channels of the same information with different EQs. Always check your phase. In this case, I'm happy with how they are phasing together. But this is what I mean by check your phase. So I can just open this nice plugin here called Mix 2 and invert this one here. Okay, you can see it sounds different, and that sounds different. So sometimes you lose your low end, sometimes you lose your mid frequencies and whatever, but just check your phase and see which side you like, and which side were you feeling like was more of what you were intending to do. Yeah, this section here, let me just hear what this is. Okay, so this looks like mostly blank. Yeah, so these got removed. It was some chanting at the end. We'll get there, but these got removed. So straight away, let's move on to our mirror, and I'll back this against the guitar because these two are countering each other. So if pan one to the left, one to the right. Okay, and this is where most of our melody and vibe is coming from in the song. And they're giving it that African rhythm with not percussions but rather toned instruments. So what we did to this, nothing special. Some low cut, so that's the mirror. Some low cut. Boosted the mids a little bit. It was a bit too thin, and then this always feels scratchy on the mirror. There's always this scratchiness, and this was to get rid of that. And then some saturation just to make it thicker. So setting on the warm tape about 20% in, and 100% of that in there, of that saturation in there. This is basically just to give it more shine, more thickness, and just more information to be heard. So if I turn this off, on, subtle, but it brings in a lot more of that warmth and more information for you to work with because it felt a bit thin. And then although we were doing that on that same spot here, we're doing that on that same spot here. It may feel like it doesn't make sense and it's countering each other, but the saturation makes you feel differently after you've put that in there. So this is what I felt like after I had that saturator running. And then finally there is this where we killed some of the lows and low mids again and then boosted some highs for a bit of shine. So without this, okay, so the highs just kind of pop out a little bit more. It's not heavy movements on this mirror, by the way. Let me take everything out. So that's where we started. And that's where we ended up. Okay, so sometimes you don't do dramatic movements. It's fine. If the sound is already fine, don't over tamper with it. Okay, so here's our guitar here. Basically just a boost on the high mids here. We're using this EQ, so it's around this is around what, 910 hertz, and then a cut around 147 hertz for some random reason. I should have just used actually a low cut would have done the same job, but maybe I just wanted some warmth taken out. This guitar basically, I also didn't tamper with it too much. A bit of saturation as well, a lot more than the other one. Let me turn off this. Yeah, so it's just making it a lot smoother, a lot warmer, that kind of thing. And both had the same treatment on the saturators, except this one has a lot more of it, and that's basically it. Yeah, so back in the mix. And then to on top of that, there's just this this section of pianos and strings, basically just warming up the track. These are not the priority of the song, except for this piano at the beginning of the mix. it kind of stands out, and I believe there's some automation because of that, so that we can have, so I'll just show you the automation. You can see at the beginning here, we just bring it up a bit because it's playing a lead role in the mix. It's the only thing that's driving the song at that moment. Okay, but once it's played its role and it's back in the background, we drop it down a couple of dBs and we continue with it like so. Yeah, the treatment for this is very typical to what I do to a piano. A bit of compression when I see 6 dB there, that's why I stop. I think I've said that before. Yeah, there you go. I haven't seen this in a while, but I knew this is what would be going on. So sometimes then I play with the attack just to see if I wanted to come a lot more forward or move a bit back in the mix. So I may use that with this, and basically that's basically what I do on the piano all the time. And then I usually drop some of the the dry signal back into the piano itself, so it doesn't sound over compressed. So this is before, after. Okay, so it just becomes a bit more, I'm here kind of thing, but it doesn't sound like there's a compressor running too heavily in the background. I know some of you can hear it, I can hear it, but it's not too heavy. Yeah. With that, let me talk a bit on the vocal and see what we did here. The instrumental mix, nothing too special. Just watching our frequencies and balance of the song. That's the main thing that we did to the instrumental. I'm very curious. I haven't opened up these vocals in a very long time. I'm very curious what we did because I do like how they sound. They sound very warm. So my vocals usually come from the channel and move to some sort of group, which is here. You can see there's a main group here. All the lead vocals, male or female or whatever, they all end up at this lead vocal channel. So let me just follow through the path and see what's happening with these vocals. So we start here with a slight gate. Let me take this off. I believe there was some noise. Usually I'll gate vocals only if there's some background noise. Yeah, there's a click track, you can hear it. And when you turn it on, it's gone. So we were just getting rid of that. And then a CLA 2A compressor. It's an opto compressor. So it's a slow attack, basically medium release sort of compressor. It's already set. Does wonders on vocals and bass. We're doing heavy. We're doing about 10 dB of compression, but it's not so apparent, which is what I love about this compressor. And then after that, this goes to our main vocal here. Funny enough, it feels like there's no EQ. I think it's because I feel like they might have done some EQ while recording. So there is no more EQ to it except for this multi-band compressor, which is doing most of the controlling and basically it's heavy on the mid-range, I believe so. Let me just hear this. There we go. So without. So you can see it sounds a bit nasally without it, and with it sounds a lot smoother. There we go. Yeah, so I like that. And then finally we just did this. I was obsessed with this plugin during that period of time. I had just discovered it. When you put this on, it just makes your vocal just have this nice magic to it. And I believe I shared it with Dan Koviwa, and this guy is still obsessed with it up to now, I believe so. I think this is on his vocal channel 24/7. Yeah. Let me just hear how it sounds without. So that's all. That's on. Off. You can tell it just loses that professional touch to the vocal. It just loses. Let me play it some more. Just listen to it. This is off. Okay, I'll run the same line on. It just sounds so polished and professional. Sounds like you've added a bit of saturator, a bit of high-end shimmer, and just controlling the low end really well, all in one move. And obviously you have to do really heavy compression for it to feel like it's doing that magic thing. So it's doing, I'm compressing about 12 decibels at its most. And yeah, similar thing, you only have a release setting. Recovery is the release setting here, and the rest is already pretty much baked into it, pretty much. Yeah, I just love what this compressor does. But anyway, and that's basically all we did to the vocals. And you can tell that the same vocals, same chain is doing for the female as well. So let me just... Okay, and we didn't even do anything on her channel. We just let these two plugins do the magic. I really thought I had done a lot more than I'm seeing right now, but it just proves to show that once you hear what you're looking for, stop doing stuff. You know, once you hear what you're looking for, stop doing stuff. If it sounds fine, there's no shame in the fact that we only use two plugins. I mean, the plugins that are doing the real work here is just those two plugins. There's no shame in saying we only use two plugins for a vocal and we got to a polished finish. There's no shame in that. People used to do that for the longest of time, way back when people didn't have as many resources or computer power like we have now. So there's no shame in it. Just make the right decisions. Cut what you don't like, boost what you like, compress until it sounds nice, and move on. Simple. That's basically what we've done here. Yeah. By the way, I didn't say compress until it sounds controlled. I said compress until it sounds nice, because sometimes controlled doesn't necessarily sound nice, because the song may be asking for that dynamic difference between the different notes or even sections or anything like that. So compress until it's nice. That's what I would say. So let's move on to the backings. The backings came as groups, so it made my life easy, because it meant I literally just had pan left, pan right, which is fantastic, and they're all recorded in groups. I'll play one of them, and then the other one also is a group similar to that one. So to make sure that they stay steady on the volumes, I basically compress one of them and then copy that compressor to the other side, and that does help maintain a smooth balance between the left and the right ear when they're misbehaving. And then the processing would usually happen on the group channels, which is this right here. So you can see that I did a lot more with the backing than I did with the lead vocal. So let's see, we did the NS1, similar to gating. It's just a lot more sophisticated, but this was basically just getting rid of noise as well. So let me just play without. Okay, you can hear Aubrey in the background there, especially if you're wearing headphones. And this was just doing that, getting rid of that. API for some shine. I like this. For some shine, I think and then we're cutting, what are we cutting? 50 hertz. I don't know why you don't just turn on the high pass filter for that. But yeah, we're cutting a bit of 50 hertz as well for some random reason. Yeah. And then Fab Filter Pro C, some compression. Okay, so some light compression, as you can see, just to control the backing vocals so that they don't slightly misbehave. And then Pro Q, this is also just getting rid of some frequencies that were probably most likely overtaking the lead vocal and warming it up a little bit. So this is clearly just buying space for something. That's what it looks like to me. I would do something like this to buy space for something. And then a bit more compression. Oh. So I like this on the left-right setting for things like backing vocals. I also use the API 2500 for similar activities, where you leave these two independent to just kind of control both ears so that they get a steady sound on both sides as well. So this is basically doing what these two compressors are trying to do individually, but in one plugin. Yeah. So you can see, even though we put a lot of plugins, each one of these plugins is doing very, very little, very, very little, because we just need to get them slightly more controlled, pretty much. And I like doing this on my backing vocals. I put the reverb directly on the channel, and then just work with the mix. It helps just kind of give them a room and push them back a little bit. So without, you can see they move forward. So this is on. This is off. Okay, so they just slightly move a lot more forward. So we just tucking them back a little bit with that reverb. There'll be more reverbs treated to this, but basically that's what I start with. Yeah. And then finally some shapes for brightness, a bit of mids, a bit of lows. Basically just polishing a couple of dBs on each one of this 1.9, 2.8, 2.4. So a couple of dBs of just shine, mid range, and low frequency as well. And then I think minus 1 dB. I took off some volume because that obviously added some volume. So very simple activities on the vocals, the backing vocals, and then more reverb again, like I said. So this is now what's giving it the room now, the actual room that you will hear in the mix. So this reverb you want here is just pushing things back, but you won't hear it. And then this reverb you will hear like the room itself. So you might wonder why I'm using two reverbs, and that's why. So back in the mix. Okay, so that's that there right there. Pretty much that's that. On the pads, there's just this kind of, this is a dynamic EQ. It's obviously gonna squash this area when it gets too warm. I believe I did this move when I went back to listen to the mix in the car. It sounded a bit too heavy on the mid range, so I then went and did some drastic moves on some of the sounds that don't really need to be overtaking in the mix. So basically, those things are controllers of that problem. So this might pop up in if one or two locations. Let me see, where else could it be? Similar on the drums, there's that there. Let me see on the bass. Bass, we just did a bit more control to kind of just scoop out this area for the kick. You can see that this area here was scooped out for, I did say earlier, that area on the kick was scooped out to make space for the bass. And then we just boosted some of the the mids to kind of help the bass also pop out a bit more. These moves I remember were done after I heard the mix in the car, and I was like, oh, that sounded a bit, even I'm sure this was done because of that. Yeah, so I do that sometimes when I go listen to the mix. I come back, do certain moves to kind of just keep the mix flowing and keep the mix sounding a bit closer to a professional mix. Yeah, so I don't know why the car tells you more truth than these monitors sometimes. I don't know why that happens, but I do know why, but you get my point. You get my point. Yeah, so that's what we do. And yeah, so basically those are the main things that we did to this song. And thank you very much for watching. I just kind of just brushed through it because I would love to basically answer questions in the comments and talk more about some of what you're hearing in this mix, and just have a discussion. That's basically the whole point of opening up this mix. If you're interested more, even inbox me and we can talk some more as well. So please like our pages, Facebook and also YouTube page. You can check all of these material out at Sound Addicts Live on any of the social media outlets. Thank you very much for watching, and to everybody that's been supporting and liking the page and sharing our videos, we really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Until next time.